When you strip away the sparkle of billionaire yachts, the towering walls of luxury estates, the constant chatter of tabloids, and the endless filings in courtrooms, you are left with something that feels deeply human. You are left with a man and a woman trying to live their lives in peace against the backdrop of betrayal scandal and public judgment. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez walking into the night, hand in hand smiling under the glow of flashing cameras, is not just an ordinary act of affection. It is a statement, a quiet yet deliberate message to the world that no matter how stormy the seas become, their bond will be the anchor that holds steady to understand the weight of this moment. We must rewind because the story is not only about a billionaire love affair. It is also about the cracks that form when family ties shatter. Lauren Sánchez finds herself standing in court, not against a stranger, not against a distant rival, but against her own brother, Michael Sánchez. This is not fiction. This is not a screenplay. This is real life where the blood that once symbolized loyalty now flows into legal documents and motions, where the shared memories of childhood collide with accusations, with money demands, with betrayals. Too painful to fully capture the irony is sharp. The lawsuit focuses on photographs, private images that were never meant for public eyes. Yet instead of retreating into silence, Jeff and Lauren have chosen visibility. They have chosen to be seen, smiling, embracing, stepping out in public. Their message is unspoken but clear. You cannot wound us with shadows because we will define ourselves in the light. They reclaim the narrative with every step they take together. Every dinner date, every hand held in front of paparazzi lenses becomes both defiance and resilience. This tension between the public and the private is nothing new in Hollywood history. Time and again, celebrities have fought battles not only in court, but in the court of public opinion. Marilyn Monroe was dragged by rumors. Elizabeth Taylor was condemned for scandalous romances. Angelina Jolie lived under headlines of betrayal and adoption controversies. Yet each of them found ways to shape their own legacy despite. The noise Jeff and Lauren are following that blueprint. They know the cameras will not disappear. They know the whispers will not stop. So instead of hiding, they choose to perform strength. Michael Sánchez, however, represents something more intimate, something more dangerous than the press. He is family. He is blood-turned adversary, and that makes the wound cut deeper than any headline could ever reveal. For a woman like Lauren, whose career in media once thrived on control of the story, to find herself at war with her own brother must feel like a collapse of trust at the deepest level. Betrayal from family pierces differently. It is not just about money, it is about love, lost, about loyalty, fractured, about nights spent wondering how the person who once protected you could now seek to expose you. Jeff Bezos, for his part, understands scandal. He has weathered storms before, when his private life once spilled across front pages. He stood tall. He survived the humiliation of leaks, the endless coverage of his divorce, the spotlight on his relationship with Lauren. He knows how ruthless the cycle can be. And perhaps that is why he and Lauren appear together, smiling. Their bond becomes not just romantic, but strategic in this war of perception. They know that every photograph of them united is a counter-argument against the narrative of chaos and defeat. This story is not only about a billionaire and his partner. This is about what happens when private pain becomes public spectacle. When the intimacy of family betrayal becomes a storyline for tabloids and a weapon for lawyers. It is about the cost of fame, the way wealth magnifies conflict, the way love becomes both shield and target when the entire world is watching and judging. The night seemed ordinary to anyone passing by, just another billionaire couple leaving dinner. Their hands linked, their smiles polished. But beneath that soft glow of candlelight and camera flashes, there was a storm brewing, one that had followed them for years and would not let go. Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, and Lauren Sánchez, his wife, were not simply out for a romantic date night. They were staging a quiet statement to the world that no matter the whispers, the betrayals, or the lawsuits, they would remain united, their fingers interlocked like a shield against a tide of scandal. Because this dinner, this simple act of holding hands, came in the shadow of a family war that had spiraled into courtrooms, tabloids, and now a demand for nearly $200,000 in legal fees. The irony is sharp here. The battle is not with business rivals or political adversaries. It is with Lauren's own brother, a man who once moved in Hollywood circles, who once managed media connections, and who once had her trust, but who now stands across from her in court fighting over accusations of leaked photos. Accusations that have haunted them since 2019 and refuse to fade like ghosts, that reappear no matter how. Many times they are buried to understand why this dinner mattered, why the smiles looked rehearsed but also defiant. We have to go back to the beginning, to the secret romance that exploded into public view when the National Enquirer published messages and photos that should never have been seen by the world. Jeff Bezos, then still married to Mackenzie Scott, was suddenly the center of a scandal. Not because he was the richest man alive, not because of his empire, but because of private texts sent to Lauren, a woman who would become both his partner and his shield. The scandal erupted in 2019, and in those first days, the headlines were merciless. Tabloids painted Lauren as the other woman, Jeff as reckless, his empire suddenly fragile, but instead of hiding, he struck back. He published his now famous blog post, accusing the tabloid's parent company of extortion and blackmail, a move that turned the scandal into something larger than gossip. It became about power, about intimidation, and about who controlled the story. But behind those bold moves, there was a family fracture widening. Lauren's brother Michael became entangled in the leaks, accused of providing the Enquirer with access to private exchanges. He denied being the source. He fought against the claims. He filed lawsuits for defamation, yet the shadow stuck. The headlines called him the brother who betrayed, and for Lauren the cut was personal. Family blood turned into public enemy number one. Imagine being caught between the love of your life and the brother you grew up with, knowing that every move, every whisper, every text could be dragged into the spotlight. That is the weight Lauren carried then and still carries now. Jeff and Lauren may have billions, but no. Wealth can purchase silence once family decides to fight in the open. That is why the current legal battle matters so much. The figure $190,000 is not life-changing to Bezos. It is symbolic. It is the price of defending a reputation, the cost of saying we will not be dragged without consequence. In July 2025, Jeff and Lauren filed their motion demanding reimbursement for attorney fees and court costs following their victory under California's Anti-SLAPP law designed to stop frivolous lawsuits meant to silence or intimidate. They had already defeated Michael's defamation suit. Now they wanted him to pay for the attempt, and so the circle turned again. Lawsuits, countersuits, motions, and fees, while in public, the couple staged a different picture date nights, hand-holding radiant smiles, a performance of normalcy masking a reality of depositions, filings, and bitter family wounds. It is easy to forget in the glamour of yachts and gala gowns that this is not simply a billionaire soap opera. It is a human story about trust shattered and loyalty tested, because Lauren is not just Jeff's wife. She is a sister caught in the kind of fracture most families never imagine. How do you smile for the cameras knowing your own brother sits on the other side of a courtroom? How do you plan a wedding when your past keeps being dragged back into headlines? How do you build a future when the narrative of betrayal will not die? Michael Sánchez was never supposed to be the villain in this story. He was the brother, the confidant, the one with Hollywood connections who could navigate the slippery world of tabloids and television. He had once worked as a talent manager in Los Angeles, rubbing shoulders with media executives, political consultants, and gossip columnists. His reputation was colorful, his relationships complicated, but for Lauren, he was still family. Still blood, the one she believed could help shield her. When whispers about her closeness with Jeff began to swirl, but trust is fragile, especially in a world where influence is currency. And in 2019, when the National Enquirer revealed it had obtained intimate texts and photos between Lauren and Jeff, suspicion quickly fell on Michael. His access, his connections, his history with media insiders all painted him as the likely source. The Enquirer claimed to have secured its material lawfully. Michael denied selling his sister out, denied betraying her, and yet the stain of accusation clung to him in the court of public opinion. Perception can be as lethal as proof. Jeff's marriage unraveled under the glare of the scandal. Mackenzie Scott quietly negotiated one of the most expensive divorces. In history, while Jeff chose not to retreat but to fight, he accused the Enquirer's parent company of attempted blackmail, publishing his blog post that cut through the noise with one unforgettable headline. "No thank you, Mr. Pecker." It was a line that signaled he would not be intimidated, not by a tabloid, not by leverage over his personal life, and certainly not by the manipulation of private messages. But behind that show of defiance, the family fracture deepened, because whether Michael was guilty or not, the suspicion poisoned his bond with Lauren. Once trust is questioned between siblings, it rarely heals easily, especially when the world is watching. Michael chose to fight back. In 2020, he filed a defamation lawsuit against Jeff. Claiming his reputation had been destroyed by false accusations, he insisted he had not leaked the photos. He portrayed himself as the scapegoat caught between billionaires and media giants. But the court was not persuaded. Evidence was dismissed. As hearsay, his claims failed to meet legal thresholds, and the case was thrown out for Michael. The dismissal was more than a legal defeat. It was a branding. It left him with the label of a brother who tried and lost, who stood accused of betrayal and could not clear his name. And for Lauren, it meant the chasm widened further. Family dinners turned into courtroom transcripts, childhood memories replaced by legal filings. It is one thing to quarrel with a sibling, it is another to face them. Across years of litigation where love is measured in motions and bonds are shattered in depositions. And yet through all of this, Jeff and Lauren did not fracture. Instead, they drew closer, forged by scandal, welded by public attacks, while Michael faded into headlines. They marched forward, attending galas, sailing on yachts, building a life together that seemed untouchable on the surface. But the past has a way of resurfacing. The anti-SLAPP victory they secured in California reopened the wound. Michael's lawsuit, dismissed under a statute designed to protect free speech, left him liable for their legal fees. And so in mid-2025, Jeff and Lauren demanded $190,000 in repayment, not for the money itself, which to them is pocket change, but as a final stamp of victory, as if to say, you brought this fight, you lost, and now you will pay for it. The symbolism is crushing, to force a brother to pay nearly $200,000 to his sister and her billionaire husband for daring to challenge them in court is not just about finances, it is about power and message. It tells the world that even family will not be spared if they stand in opposition. And yet when the cameras caught Jeff and Lauren leaving their dinner hand in hand, none of this was visible to the casual eye. No one saw the paperwork, the legal bills, the transcripts. They saw only a couple smiling against the night, a billionaire in love with his new wife, a woman radiant by his side. But those who know the story understand the deeper layer. The hand-holding was not just affection, it was defiance. It was unity against the storm. It was saying to Michael, to the tabloids, to the lawyers, we are unshaken. The scandal truly ignited when the National Enquirer published its bombshell report in January 2019. The world woke up to headlines about Jeff Bezos, the richest man on earth, exchanging intimate messages with Lauren Sánchez, the helicopter pilot and television personality who had quietly become the woman in his life. The timing was brutal. Jeff was still married to Mackenzie Scott. His divorce had not yet been announced, and suddenly, the most private words of his heart were plastered across tabloids. His texts declared affection, passion, even promises of a future with Lauren, and alongside them whispers of compromising photos. The kind of images never meant for public eyes. The Enquirer boasted of having obtained them legally, insisting its reporting was airtight. But Jeff refused to accept humiliation as the ending of his story. He could have issued a simple statement. He could have tried to make the scandal vanish through silence. Instead, he launched one of the boldest counterattacks ever seen in media: warfare. He published a blog post on Medium accusing the Enquirer's parent company, American Media Inc., of extortion and blackmail. He claimed they had threatened to release nude photos of him unless he stopped investigating how they had obtained the leaks. The post was blunt, unapologetic, and carried that unforgettable line: "No thank you, Mr. Pecker," a direct shot at David Pecker, the CAO of the tabloid empire. It was not only a refusal, it was an exposure of the exposers. In that moment, Jeff transformed the scandal from a tawdry gossip item into a battle about press, freedom, intimidation, and corporate power. The world suddenly shifted from mocking him to scrutinizing the Inquirer. The focus turned to how the outlet had obtained the messages and photos. Whispers spread about foreign connections, about back-channel deals, about whether Jeff's wealth and influence had made him a target, and through it all, one name surfaced again and again: Michael Sánchez Lauren's brother. A man with Hollywood ties and connections to political operatives, reports suggested he had been in contact with Inquirer executives, that he had negotiated terms, that he had played a role in providing access. Michael denied leaking anything, insisted he was not the source, but suspicion does not fade once it attaches the narrative. Hardened the brother, sold out the sister, and even if truth was more complicated, perception became reality. The scandal dragged Jeff into a divorce settlement that would cost him more than $30 billion. It forced Lauren into the harsh glare of global judgment. It fractured families and altered legacies, but it also forged something unexpected. Jeff and Lauren did not crumble. They did not distance themselves. Instead, they leaned into each other. Their public appearances grew more deliberate, their closeness more visible, their affection more staged, but also more real, as if declaring, "We will not be destroyed by this." Still, the shadow of the Inquirer remained. Every story, every whisper carried echoes of betrayal, and even after courts dismissed Michael's defamation case, even after Jeff stood victorious in legal battles, the core wound remained, because what had been taken was not just privacy, it was dignity. Imagine the richest man in the world realizing that no amount of money can protect a private message once trust is broken, once family is suspected, once intimate moments become weapons for others to wield. That realization is why Jeff fought so publicly, why he turned a scandal into a confrontation with one of the most notorious tabloids in history, and why the bitterness with Michael endures to this day. And now, years later, when they step out of a restaurant holding hands, smiling for cameras, the ghosts of that Inquirer report still linger. The world remembers the photos, the texts, the accusations. And so each new headline about legal fees, about motions, about Michael, is not just news. It is a reminder of that moment when their private love was dragged into daylight. The courtroom became the new battlefield after the frenzy of headlines faded. The scandal did not simply evaporate. It morphed into motions, filings, depositions, and legal strategies. Michael Sánchez, determined to salvage his reputation, launched a defamation lawsuit in 2020. He claimed he had been unfairly painted as the leaker accused in whispers and reports of selling out his sister to the tabloids. He argued that Jeff and Lauren's circle had spread damaging stories that ruined his standing in Hollywood, that branded him as the betrayer, the brother who cashed in. But the law is rarely kind to cases built on perception. Without solid evidence, Michael's suit stumbled almost immediately. Judges scrutinized the filings and found them weak. Testimony offered by his side relied on hearsay not admissible under strict court standards. In November 2020, the court dismissed the case outright, leaving Michael not vindicated but defeated in legal terms. Dismissal is devastating. It means the case never even reached a jury, never got to a point where arguments could sway or evidence could be tested. It meant the foundation itself was too fragile to support a trial, and for Jeff and Lauren, it was victory. Not only did they survive the scandal, but they also proved in court that the attacks against them would not stand legally yet. The story did not end with dismissal, because California has a weapon designed precisely for battles like this: the Anti-SLAPP law, strategic lawsuits. Against public participation, SLAPP suits are designed to intimidate, to silence, to punish critics by burying them in costly litigation. California's statute allows defendants to strike back, to argue that the lawsuit was frivolous, designed not for justice but to chill free speech. If successful, the defendant can recover attorney fees and costs. Jeff and Lauren invoked this law, and the court agreed the defamation case was dismissed under anti-SLAPP protections, which meant Michael now faced the bitter prospect of paying their legal bills in the summer of 2025. That bill finally arrived, nearly $190,000 in attorney fees and costs. The number itself is not staggering in the world of billionaires, but the symbolism is crushing. It flips the narrative from Michael as victim to Michael as debtor. It transforms the story from sibling betrayal into financial punishment. The irony is piercing once Michael managed media deals and connections. Now he is being ordered to pay the most powerful couple in his family for daring to challenge them in court. And for Jeff and Lauren, the demand is not about the money. It is about the message. It is about saying, we will not simply defend, we will counterattack. We will not allow even family to drag us down without consequence. And yet, even in victory, the emotional toll lingers. Lawsuits take years. They drain not only wallets, but relationships, reputations, and peace of mind for Lauren. The pain cuts differently. It is not just a courtroom win. It is another reminder that her own brother stands on the opposite side, that every legal bill, every filing is another brick in the wall between them. And so while the media reports on dollar amounts on motions and rulings, the human cost is harder to measure. The dinners missed, the birthdays unshared, the silence between siblings once close, now turned to icy distance. And that is why their public hand-holding matters so much. Why they appear arm in arm in restaurants, smiling as though untouched by the storm. Because the truth is, the storm never ended. It only moved indoors into courtrooms and offices, into the quiet bitterness of legal documents. Their smiles are not denial, they are armor. At the end of the day, Hollywood isn't just about glamour and red carpets. It's about power, secrets, and the scandals that often stay hidden until the truth forces its way into the spotlight. Whether it's courtroom drama, relationship, chaos, or behind-the-scenes deals, one thing is certain: the story never ends here, and as always, we'll be watching, digging, and uncovering the pieces others try to keep buried.